Hi, my name is Jeff Dixon, and we are once again going to travel down the road and ask some questions about the life and death and life, maybe, of Elvis Aaron Presley. This is the Elvis Conspiracy, where we're asking some big questions, and we're looking at the life and times of perhaps the most legendary rock and roll country western singer of all time. And we are dealing with the controversy that swirled around his unexpected death in August of 1977. In our previous episode, we asked the question, as many conspiracy theorists would, is it possible that Elvis Presley was a DEA agent or a drug enforcement agent? And we talked about his meeting with Richard Nixon. In this episode, we're going to pick right back up and we go to the letter that Elvis wrote President Nixon. And he said, and I quote, "I can and I will do more good if I were made a federal agent at large, and I will help out doing it my way." See, Elvis's life very much was in the public eye, but by the same token, there was so much about his life that people would speculate about, people would wonder about, people just had no idea of knowing what was going on. In the book, Larry Geller's book, If I Can Dream, we read about an encounter that Elvis had with some businessmen that showed up and privately met with him on an occasion. Now, they got in under the guise of appearing legitimate, but after they left, they talked about how Elvis was very upset, worried, and concerned. It always fueled the speculation that there was something afoot, that there was some plot that Elvis was concerned about, some threat that he was worried about. That was always looming out there in the background of his life. But these are some questions to ask if you find it hard to believe that Elvis Presley was a drug enforcement agent. The questions? Simple. Do you believe that Elvis's dedication to his country and to law and order were sincere? He had badges from all over the country. He was a fan of law enforcement. He carried weapons with him everywhere he went. Do you believe that Elvis Presley took his federal agent position with the DEA seriously? In other words, for those who would say, well, it was just an honorary badge, the real question is, did Elvis Presley think it was an honorary badge? And did he do anything with it after he had it? Realizing that one of the tasks of the DEA is to gather information on major drug dealers, do you believe that it would be possible for Elvis to have not only gathered information like that, but to be in association with people like that and turn that information over to the DEA? Do you believe that Elvis would have put himself in dangerous situations in order to pay allegiance to both his country and fulfill his obligation to that badge that he was given? Do you believe that Elvis Presley could get into places that certain groups could not? Do you believe that Elvis Presley had the access to get to places that law enforcement could not? Do you believe that Elvis Presley would be clever enough and adept enough to pull off the task of being an undercover agent with the DEA and no one ever thinking that he could be that? Have you ever heard of DEA agents getting into trouble and having threats aimed at them where they had to disappear to stay safe? Have you ever heard of the government's protection plan for its agents? Have you heard of agents disappearing or just simply dropping out of sight? If Elvis did what DEA agents do, and his role in the DEA as informant was discovered, would Elvis have gone to extreme measures to disappear in order to protect his family, especially his daughter? And would there be moments where he might be even more likely to do that? Because one of the lesser reported events in the life of Elvis Presley is the time that Graceland was broken into. And after Graceland was breached with all of its security, Elvis's insecurities grew even stronger. Would the DEA give federal agent Presley the same protection they would give any other agent if he was in trouble? All those questions get bannered about by those that wonder whether or not this DEA thing was real. We leave it to you to come up with the answers to that, but the questions are fairly simple and fairly honest, and they give us a look at the possibility of Elvis Presley having another role in life beyond just an entertainer. Who would suspect Elvis Presley? Jack Anderson wrote in the Washington Post on January 27, 1972, Elvis Presley, the swivel-hipped singer, now has been issued a federal narcotics badge, and that was given to him by the President of the United States. Elvis Presley is a DEA agent. So, was he or wasn't he? And did it matter? And did it have anything to do with his death in August of 1977? All of that is part of that growing, swirling conspiracy of stuff that happens in Elvis's life that somehow seems to collide with this sudden death, the unexpected disappearance of one of the most famous people in America. And so what do you think? Could it have been that Elvis's role as a DEA agent caused him to leave the building for the last time? We'll talk about that more in our next episode as we continue the Elvis Conspiracy.